Wow, we're really lucky to be in this location. It's an amazing space right in the heart of downtown St. Catharines. I continue to be amazed by the role the churches have played, like we learned last time at the Beaver Dams Church about how churches can be sites of liberation as opposed to oppression.
Yeah, well, we live in a secular society where we have this kind of, many of us don't have that sense. But I think it's very common in our society to view churches as conservative and repressive in that kind of way, as controlling people rather than offering freedom. And certainly we saw in our discussions of gender, and in a building like this, we are reminded yet again that churches can be places that offer tremendous liberatory possibilities. We can't see it, but you just saw me a few minutes ago. You said God is our trust. And of course, that was a trust for freedom for these people.
Right.
God was providing a route for these people.
Now, this week we looked at a lot of different readings. So before we were looking just at gender, but this week we had this wide variety and then a bunch of different primary sources as opposed to the previous weeks where they seemed really connected. I was wondering if you could explain how, as a reader, I'm supposed to make sense of this, and what do I use these for? How are they best read?
Right. Yeah, you're right. There's not a nice, clean fit like there are in other weeks. So, for example, we have an African Canadian reading from Halifax, and we have African Canadian primary sources, but they're not from Halifax. They're from Upper Canada. So how can I imagine you guys as students interacting with these things? Well, certainly the simple point would be to say there's broadly similar stories being told across the country. Certainly the kinds of, I think when you read Sutherland and when you read the documents from Upper Canada, you'll see African Canadian people undergoing similar experiences. And of course, what we're most interested in this course is the connection between evidence, the primary source, and how the historian arrives at a way to tell the story. And I'm looking for you to find similarities and differences there, but I think in that case, you'll see people telling stories in Upper Canada that should resonate quite clearly what you're reading with in Sutherland. But I would still encourage you to look for differences too. I'd still encourage you to look for, just where things don't quite make sense, where it doesn't quite add up to what you're reading about. It's not a one-to-one thing. It's not the same story. It's a different story. It's a different province, a different year, different things going on. But we are looking for patterns, and we are interested in patterns in history. The one-off story of the really cool guy who did the really cool thing is interesting, but it doesn't really tell us that much about the way people lived in the past. So we're looking for patterns. So look for those patterns, and at the same time pay attention to those differences. There's also not a nice clean correspondence between the topics. So for example, you have a secondary reading on the women temperance petitioners in New Brunswick. We have no primary documents even vaguely related to that. But again, I'm interested in you thinking about reform, thinking about the institutions of reform and how they use those institutions, and look for parallel situations in the primary documents, maybe not on temperance and women or New Brunswick, but still using an institution, mobilizing around that institution, be it a kind of fraternal organization, civil society, or a church. And as we see in the Sutherland readings, where the church becomes the locus for the formation of civil society organizations, those refugee societies, those abolition societies, and so on, both here in St. Catharines and in Halifax. So you can find those parallels that way. So explore it in that kind of fashion. Don't expect the one-on-one connection, but look for something comparable.
I found it really fascinating. I mean, just being in this church and how in St. Catharines, Harriet Tubman is basically a hero of huge proportions, and we've always imagined ourselves, just as Kenneth writes, to be this welcoming society that we very moral and so part of our Canadian identity. In my K to 12 history lessons, I felt like we were just so wonderful, but so it was a bit jarring to read through the primary documents and read some of the statements, the quotes, really fascinating stuff where people saying that they're facing a lot of discrimination. And a lot of hardship actually here, but it was only because of the law being on their side that they were able to live here and survive.
Well, there's two important lessons there, and I'll just quickly point to the one that, in a big sense, we need to keep in our minds. We point to the law. That matters. It matters enormously. Right. People can only do what's available to them within the law, and the law was allowed free African Canadians to remain free in Canada and to avoid transport back to the United States. There was a border there that would protect those people. That's important. But to go to your disillusionment with the way you're taught through high school and all of this, I'm always reminded of the Heritage Minute on television, where they show the couple, or the small family, I guess it is, being transported in boxes on the Underground Railway and arriving in Canada, and they're released from the box and they know they're in freedom, and they say, I forget what they say, but they do this kind of thank God for Canada kind of thing. And we as Canadians are supposed to feel proud about that. But they don't show you what happened to those people afterwards. And often what happened to those people afterwards is what we're seeing in these documents. Kids not allowed to go to schools. There's all kinds of classic people not allowed under workplaces. People having difficulty building their homes. People in these documents expressing the opinion that racism was worse here in Canada than it had been back in the United States under slavery. And to which we read this, and of course we're appalled. So that's a valuable thing for us, to separate myth, what we want to believe about ourselves, from the reality of that. And it's not just to debunk it. That's not the point. The point is these people did find freedom. That doesn't matter. The people that were able to establish farms, the people that were able to build churches and middle-class communities in places like St. Catharines, they benefited from this. We can't forget that either. It's just not quite the simple, happy story that we had imagined.
Well, I think it's a really important point, especially even now, that we can learn from history, that the ability for people to congregate, and I was feeling a bit like disillusion was definitely the word, because of, wow, is there still this ongoing racism, or gender inequality? Do all these things still really exist? And yes, they do, but also the ability to get together to help a peaceful reform.
Absolutely.
Was essential, and so I think it's really fascinating to be in a place like this where those kinds of things happen.
Yeah, we live in a society where we tend to think of politics as something that happens up here, but civil society organizations are societies that we form ourselves and that we mobilize around interests and things that matter to us. And when you work together in that kind of fashion, you can affect change. And these women in New Brunswick, they didn't even have a vote. They were just, church women who get together, mobilize effectively, raise some money, communicate with one another, write letters back and forth, put pressure on their husbands, the people who actually vote, put pressure on their husbands, the people that are in politics, and achieve that. And I think the African American story goes to that as well. The interesting story here, so what you've been focusing on, and certainly I think at the heart of this lesson is about African Americans and women and those people using those institutions to mobilize. The Indigenous story is really quite different. It's about residential schools. This is about civil society in a way, but it's not their own civil society.
Right.
It's something being imposed on them. And of course, the whole point of civil society is that we do it ourselves. We organize together, we find community, we congregate, as you say. That's really, really important, and that enables us to see common visions, to look at our neighbors and say, wow, you and I think the same thing about this. We can mobilize around this. That's a powerful democratic force, but not when it's imposed on you from above. That's a really different story. And then you look at those men in the agricultural societies, they're doing fine. They can vote. They're already full participants. They're trying to protect that claim and enhance that claim, but still mobilizing through civil society. We can see how valuable that is, how powerful that is. And certainly, I'm not going to paint these people as powerful elite men. Within their communities, they were prosperous and successful. They were not oppressed. But maybe within the politics of a province, they felt marginalized because they lived in the country. They weren't in the seat of power. So even there, they're mobilizing to try to raise their ability to interact with that larger political structure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this week. While I found it challenging because of how different I thought the sources are, I really appreciate you tying it together like that. It makes more sense, and I really think there's a lot of material here to work with if you wanted to really dig deeper and have deeper conversations about what that looks like.
And that's what we'll be doing in the forum all week long.
That's great.
That's great. Thanks, Julie.